So you're playing the... Good morning, everyone. You've tuned into the 11th hour. It is 11 a.m. and we are broadcasting here from La Trobe University. I'm your host, Scarlett, and this is my lovely co-host, Kristen.
Hello, Scarlett. How are you?
I'm excellent. How's yourself?
Oh, I'm great on this lovely Tuesday morning.
It is getting brisk outside.
It certainly is.
Today we have a very big show. What's planned? What's our Twitter handle?
Oh, our Twitter handle is at 11th hour _LTU. Don't forget to follow us. And don't forget that you can tweet us as well. Definitely give us a shout out.
We love the attention. Today on the show we'll be talking about the French election, which happened over the weekend. We'll be discussing university cuts proposed by the federal budget for 2017, which will be officially announced tonight at 7:30 p.m. Fidget spinners, the craze sweeping the nation.
Oh, yeah.
I hadn't heard about it until most recently, but they look very fun.
I didn't even know what they are, to be honest, until I looked at it.
We'll find out soon.
Yeah.
The Chechnya Watch with Adam Ioannidis, and we'll be bringing our sports gurus Brayden and Ryan Rosendale in for the weekly sports wrap-up as per usual.
Yeah, exactly right.
But first we'll be heading to Lisa Berg with the news headlines.
Hi, ladies.
Hey, Lisa. How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Good, thank you.
Good. Opposition leader Bill Shorten's new ad is getting a lot of negative attention for its lack of diversity. The ad, released on Sunday night on Channel 9, features Bill Shorten standing in front of a group of people as he criticizes Liberal and National parties. He states his Labour Party will build Australia first, buy Australian first, and employ Australians first. The ad is being called racist, except for one woman, it features only white people. Mr. Shorten told reporters on Monday that he did not think the ad was racist, but admitted that the lack of non-white people was not a good look.
There are many jobs that should go to Australians first, but the Liberals and Nationals
A new
say
report
Australians
released by RMIT and Monash University show 1 in 5 Australians have been a victim of revenge porn. The information comes from an online survey of almost 4,300 people aged between 16 and 49. The results showed more people than researchers were expecting have been affected. 20% of those surveyed said they'd had images or videos taken without their consent, 11% had had them shared, and 9% had received threats that they would be shared. Men and women are equally likely to be targeted, and current legal and support responses make it difficult for victims to get justice. The report is recommending making image abuse a crime under federal telecommunication laws in Australia. Collingwood legend Lou Richards has died at 94. Richards was raised in Collingwood. He first joined its senior football ranks at 18 in 1941. During his 14-year career as a footballer, he played 250 games and scored 423 goals. After retiring from the game, Richards began his career in media, where he worked for the Sun newspaper and in radio. He also spent years calling games for a variety of organizations and had a reputation for giving players colorful nicknames. He was inducted into the AFL Hall of Fame in 1996 and the Collingwood Hall of Fame in 2004. His statue stands outside the club's Olympic Park training base in Melbourne. 82 women abducted from Islamic terrorist group Boko Haram have been released. The former schoolgirls are amongst the over 200 that were abducted in 2014 from the government secondary school in the Nigerian town of Chibok. Barrister Mustafa Zana, as well as the Swiss government and the Red Cross, negotiated the deal. They were released in exchange for 5 Boko Haram military leaders. It's unclear what will happen to the girls moving forward. They have been flown to the Nigerian capital, Abuja. There is concern for the girls' privacy, as well as fear for the thousands of less high-profile prisoners that Boko Haram still have, including the almost 100 former schoolgirls that remain in their hands. According to a tally by the Associated Press, 113 of the Chibok women remain unaccounted for. The Australian federal budget is being released later today. Some of the confirmed policies include a reversal of planned funding cuts to community legal centres and a $2.8 billion cut to university funding. Kristen and Scarlett have more on that.
Thank you very much for that, Lisa.
Thank
we
you.
certainly do. Cheers for the headlines.
Yes.
So this year's budget is looking a little more controversial than last year's, that's for sure. Of course, last year we had what was heralded as Australia's most boring budget in history because of the Prime Minister Turnbull's double dissolution election. He wasn't very able to do anything to announce anything too rash.
Yeah, and exactly that as well. I don't think we could call it a boring year in politics either, though, because
No.
we did have that double dissolution, and that was a huge call and a very huge year last year with that. But Scarlett, I don't know about you, but tonight is one of my favourite nights of the year, the budget. I thoroughly enjoy sitting down in front of the TV and critiquing all of the, obviously, the plans for the federal budget each year.
Yeah, I don't half mind it. It just sort of depends on what I know is coming.
Yeah.
See, today when I feel like there's going to be large university cuts, I'm feeling a bit anxious about it. But, you know, these things happen.
Yeah, that's right. And not only that, after the budget, we hear from our favourite person ever,
Lee Sales.
Lee Sales.
She's our poster girl.
Oh, yeah, she is.
Tweet us, Lee.
Yeah.
You're always asking the most hard-hitting questions. Okay, so are you ready for the slogan for this year's budget, Kristen?
Yes, tell me.
It's as ambiguous as ever and less catchy than past budget slogans. It's called Fairness, Opportunity and Security.
Not as catchy as we've heard in previous years, Scarlett.
No, but it does encompass a lot, doesn't it?
No.
Like I said, quite ambiguous, but
Yeah.
I suppose we can slip different announcements under these three categories where we see fit.
Yeah. And not only that as well, sorry, Scarlett. Last year it was, a much more catchier slogan as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Good debt versus bad debt.
Yeah.
I believe.
Yeah,
Was that last year, or was
I
that
believe it
more
was.
recent? So the Prime Minister did announce, though, $321 million for funding for the federal police, which covers the security part of the slogan, of course. But there's been talks saying that the funding was cut from foreign aid, which has already been cut down $11.3 billion since the coalition's been in power. So it'll be interesting to see where they pull that money from.
Yeah.
What else is on the agenda, Kristen?
Not only that, but we do have the federal government putting $4.1 million into a program to support living organ donors, which is a huge amount. And I think it's a really good target that they're target kind of audience.
Yeah,
that
that's
they're-
fantastic.
Yeah, I think it's really great. In a bid to halt a dramatic drop in the rates of donations over the last 8 years. So I think that's a really good thing. And obviously, organ donors are just some of the most generous people in our society. And it's great to see that the federal government are supporting these people.
No, I agree wholeheartedly, yeah. And, of course, we'll also see some cuts to universities and schools,
Yeah.
which is personal to us as students. There'll be a boost in education funding for primary and secondary school, but not for tertiary education, as we'll discuss a bit later in the show.
Yeah, exactly right. And we'll also be seeing as well the government putting additional expenditure into infrastructure, such as the works of obviously the Sydney airport that's been in discussion over in the last month.
Which should create a lot of growth in Sydney as a city, as well as jobs and
Yeah.
I suppose it'll make it. I mean, it's already quite an international destination, Sydney, so they must really have a big call for the expansion of it.
Yeah, exactly right. But and not only that, we also saw this week something from Bill Shorten.
Yes, Bill Shorten has caused a stir with this commercial that everyone's talking about, which has been deemed as racist by many. In a recent ad focused on keeping jobs in Australia, there are a number of workers depicted in a shot next to Bill Shorten, but there's a bit of a problem with the picture it paints. Let's have a look, shall we?
Yeah.
I'm worried about jobs for our kids in the future. There are many jobs that should go to Australians first, but the Liberals and Nationals say Australians lack the skills. So those jobs are going to 457 overseas workers. But the jobs are here, and the people who want the jobs are here. If it's really about skills shortages, we need to connect the two. Labor will connect available jobs to TAFE training. A shortened Labor government will build Australian first, buy Australian first, and employ Australians first.
Authorised by NCAR.
Now, Scarlett, that we've watched that, I want to know, what do you think about the ad? Do you think that people are taking it too far, or do you think it's kind of, a good thing that people are kind of pointing out the flaws?
Well, I find it a really hard time with this sort of criticism in that, of course, you could grab a number of random actors and in that mix it could be just a ton of lighter-skinned people. But I can see how people find it quite insensitive because they really should be identifying Australia as a diverse, secular nation, as opposed to, you know, that as a political party, they should be a little bit more nitpicky with how they produce their ads to make sure they reach the largest amount of people.
And I don't think, as well as that, Bill Shorten is the person to blame in this situation. I think it's the people behind the scenes actually working and creating the cast member for this ad. Bill Shorten, obviously, as Lisa mentioned in the headlines, came out and did mention, you know, it should be a more diverse kind of ad. Obviously, in such a diverse nation that we live in. So I don't think he's the person to blame, I think.
Well, the opposition is saying that he should have known what was going into his ad more, but I think that... I would assume that Bill Shorten has people on his team who are in charge of creating these ads, and perhaps it was just an oversight by them rather than a choice made by the party.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a bit of a tough one.
It is a little bit of a tough one, but I know some Labor supporters out there are pretty disgusted by the headlines in the last couple of days, calling out the insinuations of social media, when the message was pretty clear given in the ad that the party are focused on the working people in the Australian community and continuing to support jobs for people in Australia. And I think that's the real message that people should be looking at in the ad.
Yeah, well, I would tend to agree with you there, Kristen, but I probably shouldn't say that because I'm white and I'm middle class and I'm Caucasian, and so I don't really know what it's like to live in a world where I feel marginalised for the colour of my skin or my cultural background. So,
That's
you know,
right, yeah.
But while we're on the subject of politics, Kristen, moving right along from race, it's always a touchy subject. The French election happened over the weekend.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Big time.
Yeah, big time. And today joining us in the studio is our wonderful correspondent, James Hurley. Welcome to the show.
Hello, thank you, welcome.
From across the pond. James, how's it going?
Not too bad yourself.
Good. So it was a pretty decisive win there for Emmanuel Macron over the weekend in France. After a very interesting lead-up in French politics, what happened over this campaign that made it such an interesting time?
Well, on the Friday, overnight on Friday, Macron's emails were hacked, and past midnight, the politicians can't comment on any of the, to the media about anything really. So a bit of a deja vu moment for like Hillary Clinton when her emails got exposed and there was like a whole conundrum before the election.
So Macron wasn't able to justify himself because of the sort of ban on media.
But luckily the Electoral French Commission said it's against the law if you publish any of the documents because they can't comment on it, sorry.
Yeah. Oh, I see.
So they have to wait till, I think it was Sunday at 8 o'clock their time to address the media on anything. So it might have swung the vote, but luckily none of the documents got published.
It's interesting that they have this sort of time of impartiality where no one's allowed to make comment, just to give everyone sort of a breather and not have flyers shoved down their throat or slogans rammed in their ears.
I actually think that's a really great idea that they've done that. And
very French.
Yeah, very French. Very nice, very sweet.
A bit fur. So were you surprised by the outcome?
Not necessarily. The TV debate on the Thursday was quite heated. Bit of exchanges, and a lot of the public and the media suggested that Marine Le Pen lost it, and the polls were suggesting anyway Macron was in the lead, and in the end result he won it by a landslide, like 66% to like 34%.
Yeah, exactly right. And not only that, but the turnout was the lowest in more than 40 years. Almost 1/3 of votes chose neither Macron neither Macron or
Le Pen.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, sorry. I completely lost my track of thought there. And with 12 million abstaining and 4.2 million spoiling ballot papers. Yeah, which is really, quite incredible.
Which is unusual, and I think, I don't know too much about it. Do you know much about the choice of the French people to not partake so much in the election? Do you think it's a sort of in protest to the two leaders they had to sort of choose from?
Yeah, I'd say so. It's the first time since 1958 the two main parties haven't won. So it suggests there's a bit of an anti-establishment politics. They don't like the old regime. And I'd say, I think it was 3 years ago, he was named the economy minister for President Francois Hollande, and all the journalists were questioning who he was. So he's not got much of a political background at all.
You can certainly see that sort of wave of protectionist, nationalist rhetoric that sort of definitely came out in Le Pen's speech, like in her rhetoric throughout the campaign. But I think perhaps maybe Macron, as being someone who, a dark horse, no one really knows about, has that element of anti-establishment because he's not one of them.
Marine Le Pen was very hard right. She wants to be out the EU. She wants to ban like hijabs. Like she's very outspoken about it as well.
Yeah, that's fine. And I think that's one of the main factors that went into the election and obviously the result that came out of it too. Yeah.
Well, Macron's very dedicated to restoring a lot of power to the European Union.
Yeah,
do you think that he will be successful in that? What's his plan?
I'm not entirely sure, but I think the EU would be really relieved that he won it instead of Marine Le Pen, because that would have been another headache for them now with Brexit going on. So, but he has no MPs. So if he wants to get some sort of power in the National Assembly, he has to get some majority of the seats. And if he doesn't get that, then the other parties have a say of who they want to elect as the Prime Minister.
Yeah, and he'll definitely have a hard time as well.
Yeah.
Oh, dear.
So they could have a potential dead government or a paralysed party.
And we thought our politics was bad.
Well, I was just thinking all of the politics around the world are just taking a backflip. It's like a Mexican wave.
Yeah.
Happening left, right and centre. So Hillary Clinton also made a tweet, which I found quite interesting, saying a victory for Macron, a victory for France, the EU and the world, defeat those who are interfering with democracy. And then in brackets she put, but the media says I can't talk about that.
Yeah, something says she's still bitter about losing last year.
I don't know about that.
I don't know, maybe. I think that's a tough call.
Yeah. I'm not entirely sure what she meant by that tweet, but I will look into it.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining us, James.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure. Yeah, definitely as usual. And now we're going to be talking about something very important to us especially, and that's uni cuts.
Yes, the federal budget, as we've already announced, is going to be released at 7:30 p.m. And last week we discovered that the Turnbull government will be slashing university funds by hundreds of millions of dollars while increasing student fees and requiring students to pay back sooner and quicker.
And Scarlett, I know you've went out into the wild of La Trobe University campus and got to speak to some students and hear their thoughts about the cuts as well.
I most certainly did. Shall we have a look?
Yeah, let's have a look.
Every Tuesday, students line up at La Trobe University in Melbourne for the free sausage sizzle put on by the Student Union.
Free sausages.
This free meal could become a staple of the student diet, simply one less meal to pay for when the government's cuts to university funding rolls out. Hundreds of millions of dollars will be slashed from higher education funding in the Turnbull government's latest budget, resulting in higher fees for students and a requirement to pay back their HECS debt sooner. We spoke to La Trobe's student body to ask about their thoughts on the announced cuts.
Ultimately, in my opinion, it's probably just going to create like a gap between the rich and the poor, like a class system where only the rich people can afford to go.
Universities need as much money as they can to get people in and train them for the workforce so that we can have a bigger, better economy.
The cuts will mean that universities will be charging students more for their degrees. The government will also be dropping the income threshold for HECS debt repayments from $55,000 to $42,000. This will mean young Australians will be paying back their debt when earning a mere $7,000 above minimum wage.
It's not easy for people to have to think about paying for things now and then having to even think about paying things later on in the future. It's quite daunting, really.
University for international students is currently Australia's third largest export, but perhaps not for long with an increase in course fees. Critics are saying these cuts could come at a major loss to Australia's broader economy.
In regards to international students, they're paying a ridiculous amount more than what we're paying. If they're going to increase our fees and their fees, it's going to be even more of a burden for those people to come over, which is what's bringing money into the universities in the first place.
The fees for an international student for me are much more hefty because unlike you guys in Australia, the people of America do not have socialized education, and so I have to pay almost 100% up front to go to a university. And even while I'm here, I have to pay my university's tuition in the United States to come over here. And so I'm just paying huge, massive, hefty fees.
Women especially are expected to be hit hard by the university hikes, with women statistically earning less in their lifetime.
I think it's definitely going to be a lot harder for women. I think we should really address that as well, not just the difficulty for university students in general, but for women in particular.
think it's all well and good for them to kind of always focus on university students to carry the burden when they didn't actually have to pay. A lot of them didn't have to pay to go to university.
So get amongst that free sausage sizzle, students. You're going to appreciate a free meal where you can get it. This has been Scarlett Maloney for the 11th Hour.
Was great, Scarlett. And I know yourself and myself aren't very happy about the university cuts to obviously tertiary education.
Yeah. Well, Labor are pledging to block the cuts in the Senate, but I'm not entirely sure what the end result will be for this legislation. I feel like there's been a big push from the Liberal Party in particular to privatise Australian assets, and I feel these funding cuts are just an excuse to further the privatisation and capitalise on big business.
Yeah, that's right.
Because universities create such a huge revenue for Australia, and they're our second largest. I hear third, but then I've also heard second in more recent times, second largest export for international students as well. So there's a lot of money in universities, and I feel like the government sort of do know what they're doing when it comes to these cuts. I think it's more of an investment in the private sector, but ensuring that we protect the accessibility for all Australians to seek out tertiary education is so incredibly important, and we can't have universities charging hundreds of thousands of dollars for degrees because it'll ultimately make it a luxury for the wealthy.
Yeah, that's right. And just touching on that as well, Scarlett, we said before that the budget's slogan is fairness, opportunity. But cutting funds to university and obviously international students and students obviously around Australia, that's not really fair, and that's not really giving us an opportunity to learn and to get jobs and things like that.
Maybe they should chuck in brackets behind the fairness and then brackets for some.
Yeah.
Opportunity for some.
Yeah.
And security for some.
Yeah. I think that's probably a better slogan. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And it's great as well to see Bill Shorten obviously staying very opposed to the cuts and standing up for students like ourselves. And we see a lot of Labor MPs coming down to Latrobe very often. I've seen a couple of times we've got David Feeney, who's the local member for Batman, coming along to Latrobe and speaking to students. I've also seen Andrew Giles from Scarlett down in Whittlesea coming along to Latrobe and basically talking to students and seeing what they have to say and focusing on the importance of students in our society. And I think
these very people might feel the breeziness. I interviewed one student down at Latrobe in our main area there who was saying he thinks it's quite hilarious because the people who are making these laws are all direct beneficiaries of a free education when university was free. So all the politicians never had to pay to go to university, and if they did charge larger fees to go to nicer universities, they're still ending up in a higher socioeconomic bracket of Australia. So I just feel like it should be fair and accessible to all Australians.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And as well as that, we heard from the Education Minister Simon Birmingham, who covered or tried to cover up the cuts, stating that the Liberal government are maintaining a core principle of Australian university funding. Now, Scarlett.
Well, they've really got to change, don't they? It's classic politicking. They can't tell everyone that they're having major university cuts to save on other areas. But, I think that education is not only a privilege in Australia, but it's a right for everybody. And that's what makes Australian education so special throughout the world and draws so many people in. Might draw less people in, though, because international students pay upwards of, I don't know off the top of my head, but a lot more than domestic students pay. And if they're going to be paying even more than that, when universities hike the fees for the courses, then I can't see them choosing Australia over, say, somewhere like America or England.
Yeah, definitely right. Yeah, it's a real shame, but hopefully tonight we see what the outcome is. And obviously Bill Shorten very opposed, and we'll be seeing as well in the next couple of weeks and hopefully the next couple of months our federal government trying to persuade the Senate into backing the cuts and hopefully it doesn't pass. We hope.
I do just want to point out one more thing too, Kristen. As a female, for you and I, it's going to be
yeah.
extra hard to gain financial independence as young people because we'll be paying back that university debt at $42,000, which is $7,000 above minimum wage, but we won't reach that level until a little while after our male counterparts.
Yeah.
With the gender pay gap.
That's right.
Yeah, so we're wearing about $220-something less than men per year on average.
It's a real shame, isn't it? Real shame.
So, yeah. Let's see how it all pans out, shall we?
I think we should. I think we'll wait until tonight, have another discussion about it next week and see what happens.
Well, Kristen, you might love time in Australian politics, but it makes me feel a little on edge and uncomfortable. But there may just be the one thing out there that could help my fidgeting and the urge to start anxiously moving my fingers.
And what is it, Scarlett?
It's the Fidget Spinner.
Oh.
It's a new toy that is sweeping the globe, really, for people of all ages in toy stores.
Yeah, and I actually had no idea what this bloody fidget spinner was until came into my news feed on Facebook last week, and I was just very confused. And it's just like another lovely school kind of phase that's happened, but in 2017 rather than when I was in high school.
Well, it was a Florida inventor by the name of Catherine Hettinger who came up with the concept of the fidget spinner, and it's a way for her 7-year-old daughter to play because she couldn't play with Frisbee.
Yeah. That's right. I did hear about that as well. Yeah.
Due to an autoimmune disorder. So she has this little handheld fidget spinner that's quite weighted. I mean, I haven't touched one yet, but it looks...
I kind of want to touch it.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
Shall we have a look?
Yeah, let's have a look.
The fidget spinner became more popular around the world, from America to the UK. Now, in Melbourne, they're all over the schoolyard. Today, we're gonna ask some our uni students. Let's see how much they know about it. Do you know this one?
Yes, I do. Yes, I just came back from a trip to overseas, and kids are doing that on the streets. They love spinning that, and yeah, my cousin ended up buying one, and I tossed it over about.
Really quick question. Do you know this one?
Oh, I don't know it. Yeah, I've seen people just like flicking it around on the train. My friend's got one. It's green, and he made it himself.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Yeah, they're really cool people who are just fidgety. They like spinning it around, and they do it all the time.
Do you know this one?
The spin thing.
Fidget spinner,
Yeah, I've seen them all over the news and stuff lately. It's another craze. I remember, I'm sure my nephews and my younger cousins and stuff have them as well. I remember having yo-yos in high school. And it's kind of similar, so
that's right.
It's pretty cool.
Cool. Just really quick question. Yeah. So, do you know this one?
Yeah, same. It's on Facebook.
Facebook?
Yeah.
Have you had this one before? Or?
No. My sister has one.
Hey, sister. Yeah, how old is your sister?
13.
13? Yeah. Do you know this one?
Yeah, I've seen it online on Facebook and at the servo near my house.
Okay,
but, I've never really used one or played with one before.
Do you have any relative, little brother have this one?
No, I have not had a friend or anyone that really owns that. I just saw it at the store.
Okay, cool. Just really quick question.
Yep.
And do you know
what that is?
This one?
Yeah, I've seen it before.
Seen before from where?
In class, and it's been on Facebook.
All over?
Yeah, it gets posted on Facebook a lot.
Okay, cool.
Doesn't that make you want to kind of play with that thing of everyone?
It seems like definitely something that I'd be into because I've always been a doodler or a scribbler. I draw my books. I always have to be doing something with my hands. And I feel like that this little contraption would genuinely be beneficial to people who fidget.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, like I was saying before, I actually haven't seen a fidget spinner before, but people are seeming to really love it. It was named by Forbes last year as the must-have office toy of 2017.
You know it's good if Forbes says it.
If Forbes says it's good, then it's got to be bloody good. And so we spoke about earlier the creator, Catherine Hettinger, who spent years trying to secure a patent for the toy, but unfortunately not even Hasbro could take up on the idea, which is a real shame because nowadays it's looking like everyone's seeming to love it, and maybe Hasbro are feeling a little bit seedy now that they haven't got their fabulous fidget spinner in their hands.
I wonder what Catherine thinks.
Yeah,
she's probably a bit sore about the whole thing.
Yeah, I actually read earlier in a news report that Catherine still hasn't had any funds been, given to her at all whatsoever, and that's a real shame. But
considering her daughter has a terrible autoimmune disease as well, and the reason she made it was to help her daughter.
Yeah, that's right. And now Catherine is in her 60s, so she's hoping to actually start a Kickstarter to actually create her own fidget spinner, created obviously by her. Rather than these companies that are now creating it. And it was actually in 2016 when the two brothers in Denver, Mark and Matthew McLaughlin, raised more than $6 million on their Kickstarter campaign to actually create
$6 million.
$6 million
For a fidget spinner.
That's
I wonder
right.
what their sales pitch was.
Their sales pitch was actually $15,000.
But how would they raise $6 million? I was skeptical when I first looked at it.
Yeah,
they must have brought them around to people to show them, and then had everyone enthralled.
Yeah, it must have been a really, really interesting kind of Kickstarter campaign for them to get $6 million for it. But yeah, they only expected to raise about $15,000, which is pretty astonishing that they raised $6 million. And schools in Australia nowadays are banning the fidget spinner from being brought into class, as it's obviously a distraction and a little bit of a fiddler.
Yeah, this thing is definitely going to be banned in schools. Kids who enjoy fidgeting a lot should be maybe encouraged to channel their attention to focusing on the class and the teacher. But, there is an argument to say that this kind of mindless task, fidget spinning, would stop them from fidgeting so much and focus them in a way as to what's going on around them. So at least they were doing something with their hands.
Oh, yeah. I think that's actually a really good thing. I mean, if I was sitting in the car and fidgeting and trying to pass some time, I'd be pretty interested to grab a fidget cube or a fidget spinner and give it a crack.
Me too.
Yeah, but I don't know about you, Scarlett, but during my good old days in primary school and high school, I had the good old Tamagotchis, the Tamagotchi phase. We had the Pokemon card phase, those AFL cards from the Herald Sun, I think it was, that came out, and everyone was collecting them, and they eventually got banned too. And then we had my favourite of all, Scoobies.
Yeah, I don't know what a Scooby is to you, but I think our definition of Scoobies are different.
What's your definition of Scoobies?
It's not important right now.
Oh, okay.
But I don't think that I've ever had. I don't think I ever did. Never did the Pokemon cards. I never did a Tamagotchi. My mum just always said no. Never got a Furby. Thank God, though. Those things are so annoying.
Yeah, I'd never had a Furby either. Those things are real. I've actually seen YouTube games or gamers play something with a Furby, and it's not very pleasing. It's actually pretty scary. And
they're very scary creatures.
Now I'm pretty scarred from those Furbies. Let's light them on fire, shall we? But yeah, no. So my phase in high school was actually Scoobies. It's like different kind of strings of plastic, and you kind of make your own little kind of keychains and key tags. And I used to go around my street and sell them to my neighbours.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Making a buck.
You're
a business lady.
I made even little advertising and little pamphlets to put in my neighbours' mailboxes. So yeah,
quite the entrepreneur.
Yeah, quite the entrepreneur. That's right. Yeah. But
so Kristen, later on today with La Trobe Live, we will be playing. So you've tuned into the 11th hour, obviously, and then later on today we have 1300, which will be playing a very special little segment on a dog show that they went to go see. And yeah, we'll just give you a little show of it now.
I think let's have a look.
Lovely. I don't mind me a bit of a dog show. So tune in then for 1300 this afternoon at 1 p.m. hence the name. You have tuned into the 11th hour, of course. I'm your host, Scarlett, and I'm joined here by my lovely host, Kristen, more affectionately known as Crispy.
Yes.
And it is 11:34 a.m. We will be having a quick headlines recap now with Lisa Berg.
Lisa, welcome.
Hi. Thank you. 82 women that were abducted in Chibok in 2014 have been released. Opposition leader Bill Shorten's ad for the Labour Party is being called racist. A new report released by RMIT and Monash University show 1 in 5 Australians have been a victim of revenge porn, and Collingwood legend Lou Richards has died at 94.
Thanks for that, Lisa.
Thank you for that, Lisa.
Thanks again,
Much
ladies.
appreciated. Now on to some other news. A few weeks ago, we had our executive producer join us on the show, Adam Ioannidis, who spoke about us to the Chechnya gay rights. Let's follow Adam on his Chechen watch.
Hello.
Yeah, that was lovely.
I'm Adam Ioannidis, and welcome to Chechen Watch. A few weeks ago, we learned about the notable Russian investigative newspaper, the Novoye Gazeta, claiming that over 100 gay men were being rounded up in the Republic of Chechnya, killed, tortured, made to pay for their sins. Some pretty bold claims are also coming from the Republic leader's office, such as there are no gays in Chechnya, and that if there were any gays, their families will take care of them. Now, we all say that sounds pretty ridiculous, it's too ridiculous to be true. However, since then, Elena Milashana, the journalist who actually broke the story, has received multiple death threats from the Muslim clerics in Chechnya, calling for retribution against her and her other co-workers. She has since opted to abandon her home and is looking to flee the country. Another pretty crazy report that emerged very recently was the incident where a 17-year-old homosexual was thrown off the 9th floor of a building by his uncle in the hopes of washing away the shame from his family. Now, it's scary because you have the Chechen Republic telling its people to take care of their own homosexuals in their families, and then shit like this happens. Russian President Vladimir Putin has officially backed the investigations that will apparently be taking place into these inhumane acts after receiving much pressure. The thing that gets me, though, is the backflipping they do on their statements. 1 minute there are no gays in Chechnya, apparently. They're so confident that they just cannot exist in this Muslim republic. Yet then Kadyrov, the president, will come out with, unless we are talking about those who aren't Chechens, the fake Chechens, they say that sorry, I've stuffed up. President Kadyrov says that the only gay Chechens in Chechnya are fake Chechens. There are gay people in Chechnya, they're just not real Chechens, is what he's saying. The government will still tell their people to personally kill their own blood if they're found to be homosexuals, however. So all those families must be fake Chechens because Chechnya seems like a wonderful place to move the family up to. Kadyrov has said that he will rid Chechnya of homosexuals by the start of Ramadan, which begins on the 26th of May, even though there are no homosexuals to get rid of.
What a plot twist.
Well, yeah, it's
Crazy
quite
stuff.
bizarre. And so you were saying, too, that Putin is planning on leading the investigations with the uncle throwing his nephew.
It's more in relation to the fact that the Republic is rounding up homosexuals.
But in saying
total.
that, Putin sort of it's heavily reliant on Chechnya to be... So didn't Putin sort of create the president of Chechnya right now?
He did,
Yeah,
yes.
so
and there have been many civil wars in the past between them.
He's not necessarily building them up and then cutting them down because at the moment he's such a good ally to Russia, as opposed to old Chechen presidents.
Well, I think that's why Ramzan Kadyrov doesn't seem to be very fazed by the fact that Putin is backing it. A lot of people are saying that even though President Putin is backing it, it's just an empty sort of statement.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean anything. It's
unfortunately,
just a publicity
he actually looks quite happy in all of the reports
Which
that I've
one?
seen. Kadyrov, he always looks. He
does
very chuffed
he looks
with
like he's just
himself.
won an online gaming competition.
Yeah, he looks very happy, which is such a terrible approach for someone to take. Even if you don't like homosexuals, if you're being thrown and you're innocent, and you haven't been crowding up all of your homosexuals and putting them in concentration camps, surely you would have like a shred of solemn to your voice, or
exactly right.
regret or
Unless
worry.
you're Ramsden Kadyrov.
Yeah.
In
you
which
just
case,
don't care.
you're happy. Gold
He's
lotto.
pretty adamant that there are all these reports are fake. He's never heard any official reports of gay men being rounded up in Chechnya by the government.
Yeah.
So they're adamant there are no gays in Chechnya.
Except for the ones that are gay, but then they're not real.
Yeah, they're not actually real Chechens.
Yeah.
They're just there on holiday.
Oh, okay.
That makes sense.
Yeah, makes sense.
Of course.
Anyway, guys, we're going to take a short break. It is 11:39, and you can tweet us at the 11th hour _LTU. Thank you so much for joining us, Adam.
Thanks, guys.
No worries. We'll be right back.
Thanks for that, guys, for the little break. So now it is the 11th hour, and we are joined by our sport gurus, Brayden and Ryan. How are you going, guys?
Good, guys.
Welcome.
How's it been for sport this week? Much going on?
Bit of a sad day yesterday afternoon. I'm sure everyone's heard the passing of Collingwood and legend Lou Richards.
Yeah, so Lou passed away yesterday at 94, as we heard from Lisa earlier. He played 250 games for Collingwood. He was the premiership captain in 53. But I think where Lou made his name was he was one of the first players to turn from a player to a media personality.
Yeah, hearing this morning, retired in 1954 and then 1955, sorry, and then TV was around in 1956, and he just made the seamless transition. And without it, people like us might not have the course we're actually in. He was a pioneer for the media.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, as I said, he was one of the first players to go into it. And I guess now we see a lot of players retire. You know, your Richos, your Luke Darcy's, Cameron Mooney. They retire now and they go into what Luke kind of pioneered back in his day.
And it's completely different now, but he's going to be long forgotten. And from everyone here at Upstart, we pass on our condolences to the Richards family. And now if we go into our weekend wrap, where Lou's Pies unfortunately fell to Carlton on the weekend.
Yeah, it was one of many upsets in the round on the weekend, but we're going to focus on Carlton and Collingwood. The Blues got up by 23 points on the Pies.
Carlton, man, you're not really a fan at times. What do you think of that?
I think, Daisy, his biggest issue is himself, I think this week it came out that he's out of good faith, put the trigger clause out of his contract for next year, which is going to allow him to focus more on his football, which I think is a great thing. But I think on the weekend he probably did enough to earn another game next week. But at the game live, I couldn't get over the fact that a week after Levi Greenwood from Collingwood did such a good job at tagging Joel Selwood, that Nathan Buckley didn't send him to Mark Murphy, who's had an outstanding start to the year. And I think he finished the game with 30 touches and he was dominant for the whole day, and Greenwood played half forward for most of the day. Strange times, but now we're going to move north to Sydney, where Lance Buddy Franklin back at his best. Yeah, the Swans got their first W on the board over the Brisbane Lions at the SCG. They got up by 54 points. Buddy kicked 8 goals for. He had a bit of a tussle with Nick Robertson at one point, which I think Robertson got the best of him, but Buddy finished the day with 8-4. Yeah, Buddy Franklin, no doubt. As Triple N commentary team noted during the call, that no one has actually worked out how do you man up Buddy Franklin. Yeah, I think the week before Alex Silvani from Carlton played really well. I think a few weeks ago when Henry Shade from Collingwood, came from the Gold Coast, he played really well on Buddy. I think you've got to get him more outside 50. I know that's where he kicks most of his goals, but if you can get him up the ground a bit more, that way he's got to work back and he's got to try and get back before, I guess, the ball gets in. You say that, but as you saw on the weekend, he just kicked a drop punt from 70 metres on the run. Like, who can go with a bloke that's 6'6"? I've often heard comparisons that he could make it in the NFL as a wide receiver. What do you make of calls like that? Yeah, well, I think he's probably one of the best. I think he's the best key forward I've seen in my time watching footy since I was a kid. So I think he can probably be. Is going to be the only player that can probably reach the 1,000-goal mark in this day and age. But as you said, he kicked 8 goals for. That's the only thing that could let him down. Yeah, I think he's marking at times. I think a lot of the commentators make a point that he's not a greatest contested mark, but the work he does up the field makes up for that. But yeah, he kicked 8-4, so he could have finished. He had 12 scoring shots. I don't think he registered a handball all game, so probably could have finished with 12. But it was a good day for the Swans in all.
We're going to give the match review panel a miss this week, and we're going to stay in Sydney and the NRL, which has had simply the weekend from hell. It was test round, no clubs in action. And what happened, Ryan? Can you just give us a quick recap?
So it's been a pretty tired week for the NRL with 3 players, now 4. We'll touch on that in a minute. Now 4 and an official caught up in numerous drug-related scandals. So Friday saw Roosters centre Sean Kenny Dow allegedly caught with possession of cocaine in a nightclub. He's since denied the allegations, but he's been stood down by his club. Then on Saturday morning following the Anzac test, Kiwi players Jesse Bromwich and Kevin Proctor were caught using the same substance following the loss to Australia on Friday night. And then following both of those incidents, it went from bad to worse with Cronulla Sharks chairman Damien Cowell also caught with cocaine in a pub in Sydney.
And then this morning we saw the Cronulla under-20 player caught as well. And it really brings up this question, the illicit drugs in sport, how big of an issue is it?
I think it's I think the AFL does a really good job. I think their policy where it's, you get a strike on your first instance, whereas in the NRL, if you get found with illicit drugs, you just get a warning on your first thing. I think that's the thing where players think, I'll do it once and I'll get a warning, then I'll tighten my game up. But I think the AFL does a really good job at the illicit drugs, but I'm not sure. I think the NRL's obviously after this weekend, they're going to have to do a bit of work because it's a lot of bad press that I'm guessing the league officials don't want.
Yeah, as you said, they don't want the bad press. Todd Greenberg, at the weekend, he was at all these representatives games and he spoke to Fox Sports and he just said, I don't want to be here talking about this. He was really stern in his message. Get it out of our game. It is a joke, basically. That was what he was saying to these players.
Yeah, well, that's a stark contrast from Damien Cowell. He was in hiding basically all weekend, and on yesterday at about 11 o'clock he fronted the media and he was asked specifically, does he think the NRL has a drug issue? And he basically said, look, I don't think it's the NRL, I think it's society in general, which is probably right. But when you've got 4 players now and an official all caught in the space of 72 hours being caught with the same drug, I think there's a massive issue at play, and I think something has to be done to curb it.
And is it more concerning? You speak of Sean Kenny Dow, Kenny Proctor, Jesse Bromwich. These are 3 stars of the game. Yeah. Is it a big issue that your superstars are the ones getting caught up in it? Are they getting paid too much money?
I think it's player-to-player base, but I think the Bromwich plays for Melbourne Storm, and they came out after he was allegedly found with cocaine, and they said that for them it wasn't an issue for the Storm because he was on test duty. But then the Kiwi test team have stood down Bromwich and Proctor for the 2 games. And then Proctor was stood down. He's co-captain of the Gold Coast Titans, so he's been stood down from his post. Kenny Dow's been stood down indefinitely from playing. And Kevin,
Proctor?
Bromwich, he was stood down for 2 games, which I find fascinating. That you can only get that's like a ban of on the field, like hitting someone high. You can only get a 2-game ban for being found with an illegal drug.
And as you spoke about that, the Storm distanced themselves from that. Do you agree with that?
I don't think so. I don't think you should if he's a player on your list, even though he was on Kiwi duty on the weekend, he's still a part of that. He's still a part of that basically workplace. Just because there wasn't a game on the weekend doesn't mean that I don't think the club should be distancing themselves. I think they should be, releasing a statement, and then they should be getting Bromwich and the Gold Coast Titans should get Proctor the help that they need to curb the issue if it is an issue for these 2 guys.
And that's all we've got time for. Big week for the NRL coming up, and hopefully in the players they can get things on the right foot in the coming weeks.
Definitely. I mean, being a Queensland girl myself, it hits close to home. And the NRL boys just always seem to be involved in some sort of drug scandal. And I don't know if you guys know Paul Sterling?
Yep.
Yeah, well, he's really had a gutful, and he's saying that it's starting to do real damage now, and the sport is starting to see a real punishment after the recent just all in one sort of weekend sort of thing. In a short period of time, it really exemplifies the issue and makes NRL stars look a little bit silly.
Yeah, I think this weekend's going to be the big, curveball that's going to, hopefully shift.
Well, I didn't know, or I made a mistake. This doesn't really cut it anymore.
When you're a grown man, I know you're making a lot of money, and I think the two Kiwi test players said, we'd had a bit of alcohol, but that doesn't excuse the fact that you've been allegedly caught with an illegal substance.
And I think it flows back down to the grassroots level. Like, if parents see these guys doing this type of stuff, they're going to pull their kids out of the club straight away.
Yeah, it's very unprofessional, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, very.
So pick your act up, boys. Not you guys. You guys are fine.
You guys, yeah. You guys are okay. Yeah, and obviously disappointing loss for my dad, who's a big Collingwood supporter this weekend. And I know, Ryan, you're a big Carlton fan.
Yeah, I was at the game, so it's been a good 2 weeks so far. I think that was the best four-quarter performance Carlton put in for the year. I think the way they rebounded from the back line through Caleb Marchbank and Sam Doherty was really good. But I think, Nathan Buckley, I think Tim Lane and Mike Sheen came out this week and said that it's not a matter of if but when for Bucks now. I think even if you watch his presser from the weekend, I think he knows that, it might be time up at Collingwood. I think every year since he took over from Malthouse, they've gone a step down the ladder. So unless he can throw a massive curveball and they make finals this year, I think it's going to be very tough for him to keep his job next year.
A very sore weekend for Collingwood and on the whole.
Yeah.
With Lou as well.
Very sad, but what can you do? Really.
Unfortunately, we'll have a more positive spin on things next week with Scarlett Pub Footy League.
Yeah,
so
true.
An interesting take in the sports land.
Our sports gurus will be covering a very exclusive story. My pub footy team will be performing next Saturday at 1:10 p.m. at Vic Park. Get down there, have a cider.
I think
get involved, have a kick every quarterly.
Cider in the Gatorade bottles, I'm guessing, at halftime.
Yeah, no, just in the cider cans. It's pub footy.
Yeah, of course, it's fine. That's completely okay.
Oh, I can't wait.
Yeah, cannot wait. But thank you so much for that,
Thanks
boys.
for that, guys.
Thanks for
See you
having
next
us
week.
again.
No worries. And also, Scarlett, so this Sunday is a very important day.
Yes, Mother's Day.
Mother's Day.
Thank goodness you reminded me because I would have clean forgot.
Yeah, have you picked up your Mother's Day present just yet?
No, I haven't, but she lives in Queensland, so I might just give her a ring.
Oh, I think that's probably a good idea. A very good idea.
Bit strapped for cash at the Mo, so yeah, she'll get a lovely phone call this weekend.
Yeah, definitely.
How about you?
Oh, I still haven't gotten my mum anything yet, so I don't know why I questioned you on your spirit.
And then laughed at me.
Yeah, and then laughed at you. Yeah. No, I still haven't gotten it just yet, although my mum did expect flowers 1 week before Mother's Day, which I thought was pretty weird. She just said, Kristen, I need flowers. It's a week before Mother's Day.
She's the boss.
I was astonished. I was just, okay, might as well get her flowers then.
Give the lady what she wants, Kristen. That's what I always say.
Yeah, exactly right. And also we saw in the media as well, back onto sports, we also saw Australian swimmers Madeline Groves, Jared Port and Thomas Fraser Holmes, who will be possibly facing suspension after missing 3 drug tests over the last 12 months, which I thought was pretty...
That's quite interesting sport news, yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Just quickly before we finish, though, we have Ben and Jess on quickly, guesting on the show. Thanks for joining us,
thanks
Ben.
for joining us, guys.
Jess,
Hey,
how
guys.
are you?
Good. Yourself?
Good, thank you.
Very good, very good. So what's up for the show?
For my show?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so we've got the showdown coming up in just a few minutes here, I believe. What have we got? We've got a great blood drive donation that we went and covered. That features our own newsreader, Liam Connors. And who's that other guy? I think we all know him, Adam Ioannidis.
Is it?
Ioannidis.
Yeah, I don't. Some guy.
He's got a really great
Ioannidis.
beard.
Yeah, he does have a really good beard.
And really good blood flow, I found out. So, yeah, so we watched them donate some blood, and that was great. So look out for that. And what else have we got? We've also got coverage on the Fairfax story, cutting all the jobs in the world.
Which is pretty.
Where will we be in 5 years, guys?
Yeah.
Where will we be?
Yeah, well, that's exactly it. So lots of interest to young journalists going forward, I think, that story. So that's sort of the big ones we're covering. Oh, and we're also talking about 13 Reasons Why.
Oh, okay. Very touchy subject.
Very
Make sure you
contentious,
throw out
yeah.
a little lifeline, helpline number there as well,
absolutely
guys.
Absolutely will.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. Can't wait for it.
Yeah, and Jess, you've also got a little bit of an update about the 1300 and what they have prepared for the show.
I do, yes. So they're on at 1 p.m. They have Rachel and Callum. They'll be taking a deeper look inside the Melbourne Dog Lovers show, as we discussed earlier. There's Meg's Minutes. That segment will have a review of the much-anticipated movie Get Out. And then the team will be discussing the federal budget and political preschool, as they like to call it.
Yeah, Sheridan and Marie always seem to do the good old politics skit. They're very knowledgeable in politics, so I'm looking forward to watching that as well.
Thank you so much, guys. Looking forward to the
Thank
show.
you.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, that's all we have time for today. You have tuned into the 11th hour. We have been your hosts, Scarlett and Kristen. Make sure you tweet us at 11th hour _ LTU.
Yeah.
And we will see you next week.
Yeah, thanks so much for joining us, guys.
Cheers.